You ever look at a huge social issue and just wonder why, after all this time and all this money, the problem is still, well, a problem? Today, we're diving into why so many good, well-intentioned plans seem to fall flat, and how a pretty simple shift in how we think might just be the answer. I mean, seriously, think about it. We dream up these big policies to fix massive problems, right? Things like health disparities or education gaps. But then, fast forward a few years, and not only are the same old problems still staring us in the face, but sometimes the fix has created a whole new mess. It's this super frustrating cycle. But what if the policy itself isn't the real villain here? The idea we're digging into today suggests that the real problem is often hidden in our mental models. You know, those maps we all have in our heads for how we think the world works. And sometimes those maps have huge blind spots. They hide the crazy complexity of the problems we're trying to solve. The argument is, before we can change the world, we've got to change the way we think about it first. So to really get the new way of thinking, we first have to take a hard look at the old one. For decades, the world of policymaking has been run by this very linear, very direct way of looking at things. Political scientist Philip Tetlock has this brilliant analogy for this. He talks about two kinds of thinkers, hedgehogs and foxes. Hedgehogs are kind of myopic. They've got one big idea, one simple model, and they try to apply it to every single problem they see. Foxes, on the other hand, know lots of little things and use different models, but they can be a bit all over the place. For a long time, policymaking has been very hedgehog-like, just relying on this simplistic cause and effect logic that really doesn't cut it in the messy real world. And this image just lays that hedgehog thinking out perfectly. See? There's a problem, it gets on the agenda, a decision gets made, and poof, it's either implemented or it's not. It's just a straight line. This approach treats the world like it's some predictable machine where you can just pull a lever and get the exact result you want. But we all know society is anything but a simple machine. Okay, so if thinking in a straight line is a dead end, what's the alternative? Well, we need a total paradigm shift. We have to stop thinking in lines and start thinking in systems. Now, this is a whole different ballgame. Just look at the difference. This isn't a straight line anymore. It's a dynamic loop. You can see it's a constant process, describing, analyzing, acting, seeing what happens, and then doing it all over again. It's a model that's actually built for an uncertain world, one that gets that policy isn't a one-and-done decision, but a constant process of learning and adapting. And this whole approach, it has a name: systems thinking. The definition here is really the key to everything. It's about understanding how a whole bunch of interrelated parts all change dynamically over time. It's not about just pulling out one little problem and trying to fix it. It's about seeing the entire web of connections that created it in the first place. So what does it actually mean to be a systems thinker? Well, for starters, you're not just looking at one piece of the puzzle. You're trying to see the whole board. You're always on the lookout for those hidden connections and dependencies. And this is a big one. You focus on the structure of the problem, not on finding someone to blame. But maybe the most important shift is this. You realize you aren't some outside observer. You are part of the very system you're trying to change. This slide gets right to the heart, the lifeblood of any system: feedback loops. On one side, you've got positive feedback loops, which are self-amplifying. Think of a video that goes viral. The more shares it gets, the more people see it, which leads to even more shares. It's an engine of growth. Then, on the other side, you have negative feedback loops, which are all about stabilizing things. Your thermostat is a perfect example. It keeps the room from getting too hot or too cold. These loops, often invisible, are constantly driving the behavior of all the systems around us. Okay, I know this can all sound a little abstract, so let's bring it down to earth. Let's look at how these ideas actually play out in the real world, where systems are constantly reacting to our attempts to change them. This quote right here just nails it. It perfectly captures this thing called policy resistance. That's the tendency for a system's own natural response to completely defeat the very thing that was designed to fix it. You push hard over here, and the system, with all its crazy feedback loops, pushes back over there in a way you totally did not see coming. So our first case study is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, or the VA. On paper, it's this huge integrated healthcare system, but the reality of its structure, way more complicated. Okay, so if you looked at an official org chart for the VA, you'd see all these neat, clean lines of command. But this is a network map. It shows how things really get done. So in this picture, for example, we can see a clear line between a veteran and their counseling service. But see what's missing? There's no direct connection shown to the hospital. Now, that kind of disconnect is totally invisible on a formal chart, but it could be a massive bureaucratic hurdle or a communication breakdown that keeps a veteran from getting the care they need. It shows us that understanding this hidden, informal web is maybe even more important than the official structure. All right, for our next example, let's head down under to Australia and look at their aggressive anti-smoking laws. This is just a perfect example of a system pushing back against a policy that had the best of intentions. So back in 2012, Australia passed the Plain Packaging Act. It forced all cigarettes to be sold in these really drab boxes covered with graphic health warnings. It was a really hard push against the tobacco industry. But the system pushed back. Out of nowhere, a brand new market popped up for these decorative skins that smokers could buy to just cover up the warnings. It's a textbook example of policy resistance. An attempt to solve one problem accidentally created a whole new one that kind of undermined the entire point. So what's the takeaway from all this? If we can't just force or control these complex systems, what are we supposed to do? The key is to change our entire mindset from one of control to one of collaboration. We have to learn how to, dance with the system. I absolutely love this quote from the legendary systems thinker Donella Meadows because, honestly, it says it all. The goal isn't to impose our will and force a solution. It's to listen. It's to learn from the surprises and the feedback the system gives us, and to find those little leverage points where just a tiny nudge can create huge, lasting change. So as we finish up, I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. Whether it's in your own community, your job, or even in global politics, what's a really stubborn problem that you've been looking at in a straight line? And how might you start seeing it as a dynamic, interconnected system instead? Thanks for joining me.